Thank all of you for joining us today. I'm Caitlin Giles McCormick here with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Today's session is an informational overview on the New Jersey Clean Energy Loans Program. To officially get us started with the presentation, I'm going to shift things over to EDA's Managing Director of Innovation and Impact, Ram Akella. Ram?
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the entire clean energy team, I welcome you all this afternoon to this webinar. As you know, the climate change is a critical part of the EDA's charter. In supporting Governor Murphy's zero emission goal by 2035, we at the EDA have been working on several initiatives. The two largest contributors to emissions are vehicles and buildings in the Garden State. To that end, we're launching Phase 2 of the NJEDA voucher program to relieve acquisition costs for medium to heavyweight trucks this week. We're working through a $300 million offshore wind tax program. We released the guidelines for the Garden State CPACE program to finance building energy efficiency projects last week. We're working on standing up other programs such as building decarbonization financing, a green fund, and today we're launching our CELS program that Marta Carabel will walk you through. Thank you again for joining us. Without further delay, I would like to pass the baton over to Marta.
Thank you very much, Ram. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Marta Cabral. I'm a Senior Project Officer for Clean Energy here at the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. And I'm very excited to talk to you today about our New Jersey Clean Energy Loans Program, or NJCELS, as we call it. So to get us started, I will just give you a quick sense of the topics that we will cover today. So you just heard our welcoming remarks from Ram Akella. Thank you, Ram. And today I will be going over an overview of the NJCELS program. I'll walk you through the eligibility criteria for the program. We'll talk about the scoring component of the program and all the different scoring criteria. And then I will give you an overview of what the application process will look like. I wanted to mention, so today we are having our informational webinar. This webinar will be recorded and shared after the fact. And then our application has not yet launched or gone live, but our launch date is Wednesday, April 19th for the program. So this coming Wednesday at 10 a.m. and more about that soon. So thank you everyone for joining. As Caitlin mentioned, hopefully there will be some time at the end of this session for me to answer a couple of questions. And I ask that you be patient with me and hold your questions until the end as I go through the presentation. Thank you. So to get us started here, an overview of our New Jersey Clean Energy Loans Program, NJCELS. What is NJCELS? So NJCELS is a co-lending program, meaning that the EDA will lend alongside a financial institution. There is at least a 1-to-1 match requirement with capital from financial institutions for this program. The program is designed to support small businesses and catalyze the deployment of clean energy in New Jersey. And we are using this program to support clean energy projects, as well as the creation and expansion of clean energy businesses in the state. This program is an $80 million program, and the NJEDA's portion of the loans will be between $250,000 up to $10 million loans. And for projects or businesses requesting a total loan amount of $500,000 to $20 million. And again, the EDA will finance up to half. Our funding source for this program is the State Small Business Credit Initiative, or SSBCI as we call it. It's a federal program run by the U.S. Department of the Treasury. And the purpose of the State Small Business Credit Initiative program is to support small businesses and democratize access to capital. So a few specifics about our loan terms and rates for NJCELS. As I mentioned on the previous slide, the EDA will finance up to 50% of the total loan amount for a project or a business. Our EDA loan terms are between $250,000 and $10 million, again, for projects requesting a total loan amount of $500,000 to $20 million. The terms will be between 1 and 25 years. The EDA's loans will have an interest rate of 3% below the financial institution's interest rate. Our loans will be secured but subordinate to the financial institution and collateral. And lastly, the EDA will match the financial institution's terms. I also wanted to mention, we are offering special terms for minority, woman, or veteran-owned businesses. There is the New Jersey certification required for those types of businesses, and we'll talk more about how to get that at the end for those of you who have questions. Businesses or projects located in an overburdened community. If you are in one of these two categories, you will receive an additional 1% interest rate reduction on top of that 3%, and that's for each of those. So if you are a woman-owned business in an overburdened community, you would get 2% below in addition to the 3%, so up to 5% below the financial institution's interest rate. You are also eligible for 10% loan forgiveness if the project results in at least one job being created per $100,000 of the total loan amount. And I just want to make a note here, later in this presentation, we're going to go over what is an overburdened community and how do I kind of calculate this one job per $100,000. So if you have questions about that, answers coming up shortly. So what can these NJCELS loans be used for? Loan proceeds through this program must be used for business purposes only, and that includes, it can be used for startup costs, working capital, acquisition of equipment, inventory, or services used in the production, manufacturing, or delivery of a business's goods or services, or the purchase, construction, renovation, or tenant improvements of an eligible place of business that is not for passive real estate investment purposes. And I did want to make a note here as well that if your project involves construction or any of the items listed here at the bottom of the slide, so reconstruction, demolition, alteration, custom fabrication, repair work, or maintenance work with a contract of $2,000 or more, the project will be required to comply with the New Jersey Prevailing Wage Act and affirmative action. In addition, if your project involves new construction, there may be additional documentation that you might need, including, for example, from the Department of Environmental Protection. And we will work with you to make sure that you know what you need, and we'll answer any questions you have. So if you're making a note that this might apply to you, we'll certainly help you, walk you through that process and make sure you are able to comply with the Prevailing Wage Act and the affirmative action requirements. So I did want to mention a note about our program fees for NJCELS. There is a $1,000 non-refundable application fee, and we'll talk more about this throughout today's presentation, but we really want to make sure that applicants are not applying until they have kind of everything all squared away. They know they're eligible, they know they're going to meet the scoring criteria, they have all their required documents, and then they're ready to apply. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us before you submit your application. In addition, there is a commitment fee of 0.875% of the loan amount paid prior to the EDA issuing a commitment letter, and that's also non-refundable. And then there's also a closing fee in addition, which is also 0.875% of the loan amount, also not refundable. So we did just want to be upfront about the program fees for NJCELS. At this time, I wanted to make sure that everyone on the call is aware of our njeda.com/NJCELS website. This is a really great resource. We have our NJCELS page live, and we really encourage everyone to go to the website, consult the documents we have, read through some of the key definitions there. A lot of the information we're talking about today is available right now publicly on the website. So if there's anything you want to be following along with, go to the website, definitely check it out. And we'll be kind of covering different key points of the website throughout today's presentation. All right, so that was kind of a broad overview of what the program is, how it works, who it's meant for. Now we're going to dive in a little bit more and talk about the eligibility criteria for NJCELS. So for businesses, in order to be eligible for NJCELS, you have to be all of the things on this slide. So we'll go through each of them one by one now. So the first one is you have to have under 750 full-time equivalent employees, and that includes employees of an affiliate. So if you're a business that's affiliated with another company, those do actually count as the total number of full-time equivalent employees. We will also later in this, over the course of today's session, we'll talk about the definition of full-time equivalent employees, what that means, how it's calculated. So that's the first eligibility criterion there. The second one is businesses need a tax clearance certificate no older than 180 days at the time of approval. So if you don't have this document in your file or in your folder at the time that you're applying for the program, that's okay. You just need to have it at the time you get it approved. And we have more information on how to get that as well later in today's presentation. You have to have a business or a project located in New Jersey. I'll also explain how we're defining located in New Jersey in a moment. You have to be seeking financing for a clean energy project or business. And we'll also talk about what eligible clean energy projects are in a moment. And you also have to be seeking financing to use a technology that has been demonstrated in the US or internationally. So if you're a super early stage, new kind of emerging clean tech product, this might not be the right program for you. The project or business has to be economically feasible. The total loan amount, as I mentioned earlier, has to be between $500,000 and $20 million. So that's the EDAs plus the private financing portion. And then you have to be seeking 50% or less of that total loan amount from the EDA. So loan amounts of $250,000 to $10 million. And you cannot be enrolled in any other state Small Business Credit Initiative program, SSBCI program. Again, that's the federal funding source for this program. So if you think you might be enrolled or applying for a different one, that would make you ineligible for ours. And we can answer any questions about that as well. And then lastly, in order to be ready to apply to our program, you have to have a term sheet or a letter of intent or draft agreement or commitment letter or similar document from an eligible financial institution. So you have to have kind of identified where that matching one-to-one at least financing is going to come from the financial institution. And we will talk a little bit more about that shortly as well. And then I also just wanted to mention, if an applicant meets all of the eligibility criteria on this page, that in and of itself does not necessarily mean you qualify for financing. That just means you move on to the next stage, and then there is a scoring component. So applicants must score a minimum of 50 out of 100 points in order to qualify for NJCELS. And we'll talk about that as well. Okay, so what qualifies as clean energy for NJCELS? It's quite a broad term, and we want it to be transparent and make it easy and clear for people to understand whether or not their project or technology qualifies as clean energy for NJCELS. So in terms of the type of technology or clean energy product, the list is on the slide here. So it includes solar power, onshore and offshore wind, electric battery storage, fuel cell-based storage, carbon capture, non-combustion waste-to-energy technologies, wave energy, water use minimization, carbon-reducing materials, nuclear energy, heat pumps and geothermal, run-of-river hydroelectric, and other innovative recycling technologies and processes. So that could be battery recycling, for example. And then firms that manufacture either finished or interim advanced technologies or components are also eligible for NJCELS. Excluded from our definition, I will also mention the definition on screen is not exhaustive. So if you are thinking of seeking financing for something that's not included on that list, but not included in the exclusions I'm about to read, come and talk to us because it's possible you might be eligible. So excluded from the clean energy definition are distribution or transmission utilities, conventional landfill operations, combustion-based waste to energy projects, and natural gas projects. So if you're not in that short list and you're anything else, you may be eligible. So definitely reach out to us if you're not seeing your product or project listed. And then what is an eligible clean energy project or business? So let's say you're doing, something with one of the technologies on the previous slide. Here are a couple of different types of projects or businesses that NJCELS is looking to finance. So you could be seeking finance for a clean energy infrastructure project. Let's say solar plus energy storage distributed energy resource projects, for example. You could also be seeking financing to install or purchase clean energy improvements at an existing facility. So if you're upgrading to high efficiency boilers, for example, or you're switching to electric vehicles, that could potentially qualify, even if your business has nothing to do with you're not a clean energy business, you're any type of other small business in the state that you want to do a clean energy project or improvement. In addition, we are considering financing the creation or expansion of businesses that manufacture clean energy products. For example, a manufacturer of electric vehicle batteries or their components, or clean energy services. So if you improve building envelopes, for example, and you install more energy efficient insulation, you could qualify as kind of a business that's offering a clean energy service. And then earlier I mentioned that you have to be located in New Jersey in order to be eligible for NJCELS, and I just wanted to cover what exactly that means since we may be financing projects or businesses that are quite different from one another. So if you are seeking financing for infrastructure or installation or some type of project that has kind of a physical component and that's at an existing facility, then those activities have to be physically located in New Jersey. So if you're putting solar panels on a rooftop or in a parking lot, then that has to happen in New Jersey, even if your business technically is in a neighboring state, for example. If your project is here, then you may be eligible. If you are seeking, let's say, a loan for working capital or startup costs, or you need basically a loan to expand or create your business, and you don't have kind of a physical infrastructure component of your project, then your business has to have a physical location in New Jersey, plus a minimum of 50% of full-time employees working in the state. So think about that in terms of kind of, am I doing like a physical project? If yes, that has to be in New Jersey. Am I just looking for a loan to be able to run my business? Then your business has to be in New Jersey. And then also a note here at the bottom, location requirements for this program must be maintained throughout the term of the loan. So since some of these loans could be 15 or 20 or 25-year loans, you cannot move out of New Jersey during that time if your loan is that long. And then in terms of eligibility, I wanted to again direct you to a couple of resources on our website. So if you are listening to this presentation, you're thinking, okay, I think I check a lot of those boxes. I think that applies to me. We encourage you to go to our website and take our eligibility self-assessment. This is an informal, it's not part of your formal application. It's just really a tool for you to get a preliminary sense of whether or not you might be eligible. So basically, you just answer a couple of questions. It's like a quiz or a short survey, and it gives you a preliminary answer about whether or not you would potentially be eligible based on the information you provide. So you can find that at njeda.com/njcells. And I also wanted to direct everyone and mention that we have a frequently asked questions document available on our website. That document is a helpful resource and kind of provides basically answers to frequently asked questions, additional definitions, how to calculate certain things. And this is a document that we will continue to update as we get more questions about the program so that everyone can benefit from that information, including questions that we received today during the webinar. So if you put a question in the Q&A during today's webinar at the end of this session and we didn't answer it for whatever reason, we will likely be including it in the frequently asked questions with an answer so that everyone can see the answer. And then, so we talked a lot about kind of businesses, what types of businesses are potentially eligible for NJCELS. Now I wanted to take a moment also to talk about the financial institution piece of this. So again, as a co-lending program, the financial institutions that are providing the matching funding for businesses through NJCELS are a critical piece. If there are any financial institutions listening on the call, thank you for being here. And we're eager to connect with you and we're happy you're listening today. So a couple of benefits of participating. So the EDA's lower rates may increase the number of small businesses that are seeking market rate financing terms from financial institutions. Another one is the EDA's subordinated collateral position could mitigate risk for participating co-lenders. And then of course, it allows financial institutions to participate in New Jersey's clean energy transition and kind of maximize their impact by joining up with some state dollars here. And then in terms of what types of financial institutions are eligible to serve as co-lenders for the program, the first type of financial institutions is our NJEDA Premier Lenders or CDFI Premier Lenders. This is a list of banks and financial institutions that the EDA frequently works with, and I'll share that list on the next slide actually, and it's also on our website. So if you're a bank on that list, you are automatically eligible and we'd love to connect with you and if we haven't already and see how we can partner together for this program. And then even if you're not on the Premier Lender list, or if you're a business and you already have a financial institution in mind, but it's not on this list, as long as it's a financial institution that has originated, maintained, and serviced more than $5 million in clean energy loans over a 3-year period, you are eligible for NJCELS to serve as a financial institution. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that financial institutions are required to certify that they meet these criteria and that they meet the requirements for lenders under SSBCI. So we have some certifications as part of the application that financial institutions will kind of fill out and say, yes, I am, that applies to me. So this is a list of our current existing Premier Lender partners. So again, these are banks and financial institutions often that have a presence in New Jersey that we work with frequently. So I'll give everyone a moment to kind of take a look at this slide, think about whether they see any banks or financial institutions they're interested in partnering with. And again, at the top of this slide, there is a link to where you can find this information on our website. So NJEDA.com/PremierLender/Premier Lenders is where you can see this list on our website. We also link to it on our NJCELS webpage. All right, I'll move on to the next slide now. So again, for financial institutions that may be on the call, or for businesses that have a financial institution in mind and they want to, they want us to connect directly with them, we encourage you to fill out our expression of interest form for financial institutions. And you can find that on our website. You put in the institution name, a contact name, any questions you have, and we'll get in touch with you and make sure we're connecting. And then I also wanted to direct everyone's attention to some additional resources on our website that we currently have. One of them at the top here is a PDF that we have specifically for financial institutions. It's just a short kind of informational sheet, but it can be a helpful resource. Also, again, if you're a business and you want to tell a financial institution that you're thinking about this program, that could be a helpful tool to send them to get the conversation started. And yeah, you can find the link to that expression of interest form at the bottom of the kind of right-hand screenshot that I included on this slide here. You just click on that expression of interest form and click on submit, and it'll make its way to us. All right, so that was a little bit about the eligibility criteria for businesses, for financial institutions. So hopefully people on the call are thinking, that sounds good, that applies to me, I'm ready to hear about the next thing. And the next element of the program is that if you are eligible, you then also have to score a minimum of 50 out of 100 points on our scoring criteria in order to qualify for financing. I wanted to highlight two things about this. One of them is the fact that the scoring criteria is, again, already available on our website. It's publicly available. Everyone will be scored in exactly the same way using the same scoring criteria. We'll go through each different element of the scoring criteria today, but that's on our website, and you can look at it as well after the session. The second thing I wanted to mention is that we've designed the program so that you are, again, eligible if you get 50 out of 100 points. We don't necessarily have any type of restrictions or requirements around how you get those 50 points. So it's a little bit like a menu, and you can choose the different options that apply to you to make up those 50 points, rather than everyone needing to hit all of the different buckets. So as we go through each different criterion, if you're thinking, that one doesn't apply to me, or I don't think I meet that, that might be okay as long as you meet a different one that could give you the same amount of points, for example. So just keep that in mind as we go through. All right, so the first one is a little bit, has a lot of different components to it, and we're gonna go through it slowly together so that there are hopefully no questions and no confusion around this criterion. So the first one is direct jobs forecast to be created relative to dollar amount of total loan. The little kind of asterisk indicates how we are determining this. So this will be based on the estimated number of jobs that will be created at the end of the project. And applicants will be asked to justify this estimate by completing a projected jobs log at the time of application. That's a template that we provide. It's basically a spreadsheet where you'll be asked to enter, I'm going to create, one job that says such and such. The person will work this many hours a week, and they'll work out at this location and a couple of other things. And then you'll go through and provide that information for each job you're expected to create. We have a template for that. So the scoring criteria is as follows. You get the amount of points that are on the right-hand side. It's a sliding scale. So if you create one full-time equivalent job per $100,000 or less of the total loan amount, then you get 25 points. If you create one full-time job per 100,001 to 125,000, you get slightly fewer points, and so on. We'll go through an example together on the next slide of how you would calculate that, just to make sure it's as clear as possible. And then you get a bonus 5 points if 100% of the jobs forecast to be created are in New Jersey. So if you expect that all the jobs you create will be in New Jersey, you get an extra 5 points. The definition of full-time equivalent employees is also included on our website, but I wanted to include it here at the bottom of our slide as well. For this program, a full-time equivalent employee is either one full-time employee who works at least 40 hours per week, or a combined number of 40 hours based on part-time or seasonal employees' hours per week. So for example, you could have one person who works 40 hours a week, that's one full-time equivalent employee, or you could have two part-time employees who work 20 hours a week each. Together, they make up one full-time equivalent employee. So that's the example kind of down here below. If you are a business that has 100 employees that work full-time and 50 employees that only work 20 hours a week, you would need two of each part-time employee to make one full-time equivalent employee essentially. So you would only get, of those 50 part-time employees, 25 of them, it counts as 25 full-time equivalent employees. So your total number of FTEs or full-time equivalent employees would be 125. That 100 full-time plus 25 part-time. There's also information about how to calculate seasonal employee hours of work on our website. I didn't include it here because it's a lot of information, but our website has additional examples and the FAQ as well on how to calculate with seasonal employees as well. And lastly, I also just wanted to make one additional comment. The spreadsheet of the projected jobs log that an applicant will be asked to fill out actually does this calculation automatically. So if you put in that you have a part-time employee who works 20 hours, another part-time employee who works 15, a full-time employee who works 40, all of those will update automatically and tell you how many full-time equivalent employees you're expected to create. So you won't need to do this math. You'll have kind of another verification point because the spreadsheet will do it automatically. So next I'll go through an example of how to calculate this 1 FTE per dollar amount of total loan. So we'll go through an example together here. So let's say that you are business A. Business A is applying for $500,000 in total. So they're applying for, let's say, $250,000 from the EDA plus $250,000 from the financial institution. For the purposes of this scoring criterion, we don't care about which piece is coming from where, we just care about the total amount, $500,000. And let's say business A expects to create 10 full-time equivalent jobs by the end of the project. So the business is creating 10 full-time equivalent jobs per $500,000 of the total loan. That translates to 1 FTE, which is the information we're looking for here. 1 FTE per what? How much of dollar amount? That dollar amount is calculated by taking the total loan amount and dividing it by the expected number of full-time equivalent jobs created. So for this example, you would do $500,000 divided by 10 FTEs equals $50,000. So business A will create 1 FTE per $50,000 of total loan. So then once you have that information, you would go to the scoring criteria here and take a look. Okay, 1 FTE per $50,000. So that $50,000 falls into the $100,000 or less category. So business A would get 25 points for this criterion. I hope that makes sense to everyone. I'm going to carry on, and again, available to answer questions at the end, and we have information about this on the website. All right, moving on to additional elements of our scoring criteria here. So the second one is strength of management team and partnering entities. This is scored as a binary. It's just yes, no, there's no sliding scale of points here. So if you are a business and your management team or a key partner, a partnering entity on your project has experience with the clean energy technology in the past before this, then you get 5 points. So basically, if you've ever, let's say you're applying for funding for a solar project, you or the partner has been involved with solar projects before, great, then you get those 5 points. And again, we'll be requiring examples of experience with the past projects. If this is your first foray into a solar project, you would not be awarded the 5 points, but you're still eligible. The second one is if your organization has 2 or more C-level executives, you get 10 points. If you don't, you get 0 points. Again, no sliding scale for these ones. And then if you are a minority, woman, or veteran-owned business, and again, we do need that New Jersey certification required for this, you get 10 points. And this one is not stackable. So if you are a minority-owned business and a woman-owned business, unfortunately, you still just get 10 points. You don't get 10 each. All right, this one we're also going to cover some key definitions because there's a lot of different sort of components and technical terms for this criteria. So this category is our benefits to overburdened communities category. I will go over the definition of overburdened communities in the next slide. So the first element here is reduction or avoidance of criteria pollutants in an overburdened community. So again, if you're wondering, I don't know how I'm supposed to know if I'm in an overburdened community or not, we'll explain that on the next slide. So keep that aside for a moment. So if you are reducing or avoiding criteria pollutants in an overburdened community, you get 10 points. Applicants will be required to justify how the project will lead to reducing or avoiding these pollutants, including which ones and where. And supporting documentation or references are requested. We have more information in our FAQ document, and I'll explain a couple. I'll give an example now as well. So first of all, I've included the definition of criteria pollutants at the bottom of the screen. This definition comes from the US EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. And so criteria pollutants include the following 6 air pollutants: ground level ozone, particulate matter, carbon monoxide, lead, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide. So I'll just give an example here to kind of illustrate this element. It's a little, I'll just give an example. So if you are, let's say, a business that is located in an overburdened community, and you have a fleet of diesel trucks, and you drive those trucks kind of all around that community, especially in and around your business's location all the time. And those trucks are emitting ground level ozone, particulate matter, carbon monoxide, and other kind of pollutants associated with diesel exhaust. If you are looking to swap out those diesel trucks, retire them, and, for example, purchase electric vehicles instead that don't emit any of those criteria pollutants, that would be an example of a project that would reduce or avoid criteria pollutants in an overburdened community. So again, no sliding scale here. You get 10 points or you don't, and you would describe it basically how similar to how I just did. You would explain that's the scenario, that's how it will avoid those criteria pollutants. The second one is if 50% or more of the new jobs forecast are created in an overburdened community, you get 5 points. So again, that's the same projected jobs log from the previous criterion. We just ask applicants to fill it out once of how many jobs you're expected to create, and we ask where those jobs are expected to be created. If 50% or more of those are in an overburdened community, you will be awarded 5 points here. And then the last one is reduction in energy costs for individuals or businesses in an overburdened community. Same thing, we will be asking for applicants to justify how the project is expected to reduce energy costs and where, essentially. And supporting documentation or references hyperlinks are requested. I should have mentioned actually on the previous example I gave, in terms of the type of supporting documentation or references that you would want for the scenario I gave, for example, where you're replacing diesel trucks with electric trucks, you would just find, let's say, an article that talks about how diesel trucks emit criteria air pollutants. There's a lot of information and data out there about kind of what pollutants diesel trucks emit. You would just find one that says, here's how these trucks, here's sort of supporting documentation that justifies that these diesel trucks emit these criteria air pollutants, and here's information showing that these electric trucks do not. That's the type of information we'd be requesting or looking for here. And so just for the last example, the reduction in energy costs here, an example of that, for example, is an energy efficiency project. If you are providing an energy efficiency retrofit or better insulation or anything that would lower the amount of energy consumed, for example, by an individual or a business or a series of buildings, for example, in an overburdened community, then you would be lowering costs for those people. And that's an example there. And again, no sliding scale, you get 5 points or you don't here. So in terms of what an overburdened community is, this is defined by the New Jersey Environmental Justice Law, and it's defined as a census block group in which at least 35% of the households qualify as low-income households, or 40% identify as minority or members of a state-recognized tribal community, or 40% or more of the households have limited English proficiency. So any of those three ORs qualify as an overburdened community. I included a link here to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection website. They actually have, and we've linked to this on our website as well, they actually have a link to a list of overburdened communities where you can just click on that list. It opens up a spreadsheet and you can search for your municipality or the municipality that your project or business would be in to see if it's included in the list of overburdened communities. And then we have a couple more scoring criteria here. These ones are a little bit more straightforward, I think, I hope. So the number of full-time equivalent employees at time of application. We will be asking applicants to complete a current employee log, sharing all of their current employees with us. Again, it's a template that we provide. It's a standardized form that everyone needs to fill out in the same way. And this is not about the projected jobs you're expected to create. This is about your current number of employees at the time of application. So the smaller business, the more points you receive for our scoring criteria. Again, 750 full-time equivalent employees is the cutoff for eligibility. And then if you have 100 or fewer employees, you get 10 points, sliding scale all the way up to 500 employees. And then if you have over 500 employees, you are still eligible if you're under 750 employees, but you would not receive any points for this criterion. And then the total loan amount, this would be, again, the total amount, the EDA's portion plus the financial institution portion requested for the project. This is, again, to prioritize and help smaller businesses requesting smaller loan sizes in total. So if you're requesting $1 million or less, you get 10 points, and then a sliding scale. The larger the loan you're requesting, the fewer points you receive, up until $5 million. Again, if you're requesting between $5 million and $20 million, you are still eligible. You just wouldn't receive any points here in the scoring criteria. And then last but not least, our last scoring criterion here is the ratio of private dollars to NJEDA dollars in the total loan amount requested for the project or business at the time of application. So this is about kind of how much private money you're bringing in per the EDA's loan amount. So let's say that you are applying for $4.5 million, a loan of $4.5 million. If you are receiving or bringing in 3.5 million of those from a financial institution and 1 million from the EDA, you would be in the 3.5 to 1 ratio here. So that would be 4 points. You would get 4 points on this criterion. Again, total available points, 100 points. Your business or project needs to score a minimum of 50 out of 100, and you can use any of the different criteria that we just went over to meet that 50 points. And again, this is all available on our website, so we encourage you after the call to kind of go through that scoring sheet and identify how you would make up those 50 points. And of course, if you have questions as you're doing it, or you're not sure if something would get you points or not, please reach out to us and we're happy to answer, work with you on that. Okay, and then the last section of our webinar today is just a quick overview of the application process. So I'll go through now. All right, so this is a little bit of a wordy slide, but I think it's important. So these are the required documents that applicants need in order to apply for NJCELS. So the first one is a valid tax clearance certificate. You actually don't need to have that in hand by the time you apply. You just need to have it by the time you are approved. So if you're applying and you don't have it yet, but you've applied for it, you can still submit your application as long as you then send it to us before, as soon as you receive it. The next one is the proof of location in New Jersey, lease or other address verification. And again, that's determined by those two ways I said before. If it's a project or business in the state, you have to provide proof of the location of that project or that physical kind of project or installation or infrastructure activities. If it's a business, you have to show us that your business has an office here and 50% of your employees are located in the state, and that's again in that same job log, so you won't need to provide, that's how we'll capture that information from you. You have to have ready an executive summary of your clean energy project or business, a business plan if you're a new business, a financial model, proof of 12 months revenue if you're an existing and operating company, historical financial statements if you're an operating company, a fully diluted capitalization table. If you are a New Jersey minority woman or veteran-owned certification, you have to have that certification ready. And then again, you have to have your either a term sheet or a letter of intent or draft agreement or commitment letter or similar document from a financial institution indicating how much matching funding you would be coming with. And then, yes, I just mentioned this, as part of your application, we will also ask you to complete a current employee log. We will provide a template for that. The projected jobs log, we will provide a template for that. A couple of SSBCI certifications, again, that's the funding source for the program, and they require a few certifications, so from the federal standpoint. And then we will also ask you to provide certifications from financial institutions that they comply with SSBCI requirements and that they have experience with clean energy loans if they're not a premier lender. That's not, again, that's not needed at the time that you apply, but it is needed at the time that you are approved. So if your financial institution hasn't signed those documents yet, you can still apply as long as you get that information after. A couple of helpful links in terms of how to get some of the documents that we talked about on today's call. The tax clearance certificate, there's a link for that, and we will provide all of this on our website as well. If you are looking for your woman, minority, or veteran-owned business certificate, there's the link where you can apply for that. And then if you need to register to do business in New Jersey, that's the link to find more information about that element. And again, yeah, if you're having trouble with delays in terms of processing times and you don't have a document you need, but you want to apply or you've already applied, just continue to be in communication with us and we'll work with you to help you get those documents or kind of provide some additional time in the meantime if possible. All right, so as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, our application will be launched on Wednesday, April 19th at 10 a.m. That's this Wednesday. We're very excited about it. So it's not on the website yet, but it will be on Wednesday. How should you be thinking about how to apply for this program? So if you are listening to this thinking you might be eligible, we encourage you to take our eligibility self-assessment on the website just to get a preliminary sense of whether or not this might be a good fit for you. You'd want to contact and reach out to your financial institution, see where you can secure that matching funding from. Once you have all your documents ready, including a term sheet or a draft agreement or similar document, you're ready to apply, you would submit your application. The EDA will evaluate your application to determine and verify your eligibility and your score, and then we will notify you of the decision. As part of your application, you will also complete a legal questionnaire as well as a certification of non-involvement for Russia, Belarus. You will agree to be bound by electronic signature and certify the accuracy of your application, and you will pay a $1,000 non-refundable application fee at the time that you submit your application. So again, if you have questions, please get those answered before you apply. We wouldn't want people to pay that $1,000 fee and then, find something out after the fact. Some tips for completing your application. This is a big one. We strongly recommend that you save your progress regularly. The application is quite long. It has a lot of different components, and the worst feeling is when you click out of something or you open a link and it takes you out of the application and then you've lost the progress you've made. So we have save buttons. We try to include some reminders to save your progress, and we really encourage you to kind of remember to hit that save button on every page. Of course, please consult the scoring criteria. Again, I mentioned that's available on our website. And then please consult the FAQ document as well. And again, we have an FAQ document with some questions and answers already, and we'll be adding more following today's session with the questions that you share. And then if you have any other questions or doubts, or you want to connect with us, please email us at njcells@njeda.com. Just a quick note here, since this is a federally funded program, it's part of the SSBCI programs, there are guidelines for compliance for program requirements, application approval, and ongoing monitoring. So just a note here that businesses applying to this program have to provide complete and accurate application submissions, and also there will be reporting requirements and timing requirements that are necessary as part of the program. Misrepresentation, omissions, or deviation from program requirements may subject a business to repayment of benefits or penalties. So just, please make sure that if you have any questions about any information we're requiring, you're reaching out to us, and we can make sure that you have what you need to comply with all of these requirements. In closing, some next steps, please take that eligibility self-assessment, review our scoring criteria, reach out to financial institutions, and if you don't know where to start with that, you can connect with us and we'll point you in the right direction, and prepare your required documents for the program. Again, I'll leave you with our website information, njeda.com/njcells, and our email, njcells@njeda.com. And that is it for today. So I think we have a few minutes for questions. So I'll take a look at the Q&A now and stop sharing my screen. And hopefully we'll have time to answer a couple of your questions today. Thank you. Okay. All right, just bear with me for a moment as I catch up on some of the questions that have been asked here. So, whoops. Okay. Okay, I'm just seeing these. I'm going to answer these in sort of the order that I'm reading them, and have quick answers too. When does the application acceptance end? So good question. This program is we're accepting applications on a rolling basis. It's quite a long program. It's through SSBCI, the programs are quite long. So we don't have a closing date right now in terms of when you could submit your application. So no kind of closing element there. A waiver is not eligible for this application, like 50% off as the ZIP program has. So unfortunately, yeah, waivers are not part of this application. However, again, if you're a minority woman or veteran-owned business, you would get an extra 1 or 2% reduction, or a project in an overburdened community, you would get a 1 or 2% interest rate reduction on the EDA's loan, as well as possibility for 10% loan forgiveness. So there are sort of some special financing terms, but not a waiver in the way that our NJZIP program has. Are R&D projects eligible? Good question. So we do have that requirement that the technology must be demonstrated in the US or internationally. So it has to have been sort of, and our definition for demonstrated is actually on our NJCELS website, I believe, or in our FAQ document. And oops, bear with me. I'm just finding the definition so I can quickly read it if I can find it. If not, that's okay. So demonstrated means that at a minimum, a prototype has been verified in an operational environment, either in the US or abroad. So R&D projects, it depends on kind of how far along you are, but that's a kind of requirement there. Okay, I'm seeing a question about, we are a clean energy business. We manufacture a component for geothermal heat pumps, which would definitely be eligible. We don't have an end of project for the purpose of number of employees eligibility. So how would we count the number of employees by what time? So I think there are two different questions here. One of them is about the current number of employees that your business has. So at the time of application, how many people does your manufacturing business have? That's one thing, and that feels like a more straightforward one. In terms of the projected jobs and how many jobs you are expected to create by the end of the project, which I think is what this is about, that's a good question, and maybe connect with us and we can sort of help you determine that in terms of the projected jobs created. We'll provide more information about that. Okay. Would the business owner and managing member be considered an FTE if the business doesn't have employees at the time of application? Yes, the business owner and managing member, I believe, would be considered an FTE or an employee of the company if you don't have other employees at the time of application. Yes. Someone said 1 FTE per $100,000 for all time. I believe the answer is yes. So again, in the projected jobs created, that would be $1 per $100,000 of the total loan of all of the FTEs that you're expected to create over the lifetime of the project is how you would calculate it. So yes. I would need to know more details, but I think would a solar EPC business be considered as a clean energy business and get funding for working capital through NJCELS? I believe so. And let's see here. When will you receive notification of approval as long as a business meets requirements? That's a good question. I don't have an immediate time frame that I can share with you now, but I can get back to you on that question. We're hoping to kind of review applications as they come in on a rolling basis and move as quickly as we can, but there are kind of internal processes that need to be followed. That's a good question, and I'll share more information about that after the fact. Can this program be coupled with following sources of project funding? And I'm seeing some other funding. Some of them are NJEDA programs and others are not. In terms of NJEDA programs, like CPACE or Aspire, for example, I would say there's no eligibility requirement or there's nothing that says that you are not eligible for NJCELS if you're receiving funding from somewhere else. So that seems fine. And then for other non-EDA programs, it depends. Other than the SSBCI one that you can't be combined with SSBCI, that's kind of where the end of our restrictions fall. However, for some of those other programs, they may have restrictions on what you can and can't combine those with. So I would take a look at those, but I can also provide more information after the call. Okay, I realize it's 2 p.m. and I want to be respectful of everyone's time here. I know there are some questions I haven't answered, but I will be receiving a record of all of the questions that have been asked today. We will add these to our FAQs and provide information, provide the answers. And yeah, again, if you have other questions, please reach out to me. Please reach out to us at NJCELS, njcels@njeda.com. We really look forward to connecting with you. And thank you again very much for your time. And apologies if I didn't get to your question. I look forward to receiving it and answering it after the fact. Terrific. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great afternoon. I hope this is helpful. And again, we look forward to receiving your applications and working with you.